My son, Mark, walked into my kitchen one sunny Tuesday, waving a stack of papers. "Mom," he said with that charming smile of his, "just some insurance forms I need you to sign. It'll make things easier for everyone down the line." I trusted him, of course. He's my son. So, without even glancing at the fine print, I picked up a pen and signed where he pointed. "It's just paperwork, Mom," he'd said. But that paperwork, that simple stack of papers, was a betrayal so deep it nearly cost me everything I had ever worked for. It was the paper that almost took my life, not in a physical sense, but in every other way that matters. It was a calculated move to erase my existence while I was still living it. For a few weeks after that, life went on as normal. I went to my book club, tended my garden, and enjoyed my retirement. Then, little things started to feel off. I went to the bank to withdraw some cash for my weekly farmer's market trip, and the teller informed me my daily withdrawal limit had been drastically lowered. I called the bank, confused. They told me the change was requested by the holder of my power of attorney. Power of attorney? I'd never given anyone power of attorney. The friendly bank manager on the phone sounded concerned. "Ma'am, our records show the documents were filed 2 weeks ago. The name listed is Mark," he said, and my blood ran cold. I remembered the insurance forms. My hand started to shake as I hung up the phone. It couldn't be. Not my Mark. The real turning point, the moment the fog of denial began to lift, came from the most innocent of sources, my grandson, Leo. He was staying with me for the weekend, and I overheard him on the phone with his dad, my son. "Dad, when are you and Mom coming to get me?" he asked. There was a pause. Then I heard Leo's small voice, laced with confusion. "Why? Why do we have to wait for Grandma to get sick? What's a nursing home?" My heart stopped. I felt like I couldn't breathe. He was just a child, repeating what he'd heard, but his words were like a dagger. Wait for me to get sick? A nursing home? The pieces started to click into place with a horrifying, deafening clang. They were waiting. They were planning. That night, after Leo was asleep, I went to the file cabinet where I keep all my important documents. My hands trembled so much I could barely get the key in the lock. I found the folder Mark had left. The title on the top page wasn't "Insurance Policy." It was "Durable Power of Attorney." I spread the pages across my dining room table, my reading glasses perched on my nose, and I read every single word. It was worse than I could have imagined. I had signed away control of my finances, my property, my home. The document was ironclad. It stated that if I were ever to be deemed incapacitated by a single doctor, Mark would have the absolute authority to sell my house, liquidate my assets, and make all my medical decisions. I was one diagnosis, one slip and fall, one bout of the flu, one moment of forgetfulness, away from being completely erased. My home of 40 years could be sold out from under me. I would be at his mercy, penniless and powerless, waiting in a facility for my life to end. The room started to spin. The loving son I thought I knew had orchestrated a silent coup, patiently waiting to seize my entire life's work. The next morning, I felt a resolve I hadn't felt in years. This wasn't just about my money or my house, it was about my dignity, my autonomy. I couldn't let him do this. I found a lawyer specializing in elder law. Her name was Sarah, and she listened to my story with a calm, steely focus that gave me a flicker of hope. She reviewed the documents and confirmed my fears. "This is a classic case of financial elder abuse," she said, her voice firm. "The fact that he misled you about the nature of the document is fraud. We can fight this." Her words were a lifeline. Following her advice, the first step was to put a fraud alert on all my bank accounts and credit reports. This would flag any unusual activity and require my explicit, in-person confirmation for any major transactions. It was a small shield, but it was a start. Sarah also advised me on the next, most difficult step. I had to confront Mark. And I had to record it. Walking into Mark's house for that confrontation was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. I had a small digital recorder in my pocket, its red light blinking silently. My daughter-in-law, Susan, greeted me with a tight, false smile. Mark came into the living room, looking wary. I didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Mark, we need to talk about the papers I signed," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "They weren't for insurance. They were a power of attorney." His face hardened. The charming son disappeared, replaced by a cold stranger. "I don't know what you're talking about, Mom." "You're getting confused again," he said, his tone laced with condescension. Susan chimed in, "We're just trying to look out for you, dear. Your memory isn't what it used to be." That's when I laid it on the table. "I know what you're planning." I heard Leo. "You waiting for me to get sick so you can put me in a home and take everything." The moment the accusation left my lips, the pretense shattered. Mark's face contorted with rage. "You're delusional," he spat. "You're losing your mind. You know what? This proves it. I'm going to have to call Adult Protective Services. I'll tell them you're unstable, that you're a danger to yourself. They'll see I'm right. They'll have you evaluated, and then the power of attorney will be the least of your worries. He was threatening me, using the very system designed to protect people like me as a weapon against me. He was going to try to have me declared incompetent to finish what he started. My heart hammered in my chest, but I stood my ground, clutching the recorder in my pocket. I had what I needed. His own words were his undoing. I just walked out without saying another word, the recording a burning weight in my pocket. Just as he'd threatened, 2 days later, a caseworker from Adult Protective Services, or APS, was at my door. A kind but professional woman named Mrs. Davis said she was there to follow up on a report of concern. My stomach was in knots, but I remembered my lawyer's advice: be calm, be honest, be yourself. I invited her in, offered her tea, and we talked for over an hour. I showed her my pristine home, my garden, my detailed financial records from before Mark's interference. I told her about my book club, my weekly bridge games, my volunteer work at the local library. I was clear, coherent, and in full command of my faculties. Mrs. Davis could see it plainly. The person Mark had described, a confused, unstable old woman, was nowhere to be found. At the end of her visit, she smiled warmly. "Ma'am," she said, "it's clear to me that you are perfectly capable of managing your own affairs. We will be closing this case." The relief was so immense, I almost burst into tears after she left. Mark's cruelest weapon had failed. Armed with the APS report confirming my competence and the damning recording of Mark's threats, my lawyer, Sarah, went on the offensive. We filed a petition with the court to have the power of attorney immediately revoked on the grounds of fraud and undue influence. We presented the recording as evidence of his intent. When Mark and his lawyer were confronted with the recording of him explicitly threatening to have me falsely declared incompetent to seize my assets, their case crumbled. The judge was appalled. He not only nullified the power of attorney but also issued a restraining order, forbidding Mark from having any contact with me or my finances. The legal victory was swift and absolute. I finally had my life back. The final step was the most painful, but the most necessary. I went back to my lawyer's office one last time and redrafted my will. For years, Mark had been my sole heir. It was a given, something I never thought twice about. But he had shown me who he truly was. He hadn't just wanted my money, he wanted to strip me of my life, my identity, my home, all while I was still here to watch it happen. With a heavy heart but a clear mind, I wrote him out of my will completely. Everything I had would now go to my grandson, Leo, placed in a trust that he could not access until he was much older, managed by a professional executor. It was a painful, heartbreaking decision. A mother should never have to disinherit her own child. But Mark hadn't just been a bad son, he had become a predator. And I had to protect myself, my legacy, and the future of the one person who had inadvertently saved me. It was a brutal lesson in trust, betrayal, and the terrifying power of just paperwork. It almost cost me my life, but in the end, I survived, stronger and wiser than before. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it serves as a warning and empowers others. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life stories.